All right, guys, what's going on? We are here. We're live. Welcome to a special edition, again, with Dani Stern, a.k.a. Ansky. We are here discussing the upcoming player strike on Pokerstars that will be taking place December 1st to December 3rd. Ansky has sort of taken the reins here on the social media front, on the 2+2 front, and we're going to talk more about it. If you don't know what we're talking about, there's a link in the description below to the first video we did discussing the Pokerstars VIP changes, and you can go through the threads. You can check everything out in there. You can watch that video back at a later date. This one, we're just going to be talking about the player strike, and we'll probably get a little bit more into the changes and sort of what's taken place since the first video that we did. So, all right, let's get started. What's going on, Ansky? How are you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Just got back from a little post-wedding vacation and got right back into the struggle. So I'm happy to, I don't know about leading the struggle, but I'm happy to be a part of it. And people seem to be looking to me for some sort of like direction. So I'm trying to direct everyone towards the strike on December 1st. And I think it's a good opportunity to show what we're capable of.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I just want to say congratulations to you, by the way. You did get married, and before you left, you were pretty vocal about what's been happening, and you went to your wedding. Where was that? It was Italy or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was in Florence.
It was in Florence, and you came back, and now you're right back at it, man. So I know a lot of people out there. I've read a lot of posts. I've read a lot of tweets. I know a lot of people are very happy that someone in the community is stepping up and someone is, being like a vocal leader for the people who maybe their voice doesn't carry as much weight in the community. So, I think it's great what you're doing, man.
Yeah, I mean, I hope everyone realizes that there's nothing personal about this for me. This is, I really believe that if Pokerstars goes through with these radical, insane changes, that it's gonna have very bad repercussions for the poker community and for poker in general. A lot of people seem to think that it's some sort of money grab for Amaya. Maybe it is. That part is not really clear. I'm not really sure what the results of it are going to be. But I actually think my read, if I had to guess, I think this is going to hurt them tremendously. And that's part of the reason why I'm so intent on arguing them down from the ledge, because I think they're wrong. And I think they're actually not just going to hurt us, they're going to hurt themselves, they're going to hurt everyone. And I mean, let's face it, Pokerstars represents a huge percentage of just poker, like all poker in general. Even if you play live poker in Cincinnati or something, I don't know, but like Pokerstars is just so dominant and such a huge percent of the online poker market and has so much global influence, and they might be coming back to the US, and they control the lives of so many poker players that it actually affects you no matter where you are or what you're doing. I think I brought this up with you the other day on Skype. Like, if Pokerstars sinks the idea of being an online poker pro, and it just, in a couple of years, it's just no longer viable to play 5, 10, 20, no limit or PLO, what do you think is going to happen to all of the exiled American pros who left the country to keep playing online? They're going to come back to the US and they're going to start playing in all your live games, or they're going to play on Bovada, they're going to play on all the other American facing sites, and I don't think,
WPN.
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, there's not many options for Americans to play on anyway here in the States too. So
yeah, but my point is they're coming back, and I don't think anyone at the Commerce wants like a bunch of 10-20 online PLO regs coming and playing their 2040 game or something like that. And this is like besides the point. This is a tangent, but my point is I'm just trying to show that Pokerstars is so big and so massive that any change that they make will have big repercussions throughout the entire poker world. That's all I'm trying to say.
All right, so let's talk about the strike. So the strike was originated. It's an idea. I've heard about this idea since the initial changes were brought up from a couple of different people. I guess it started on the Russian poker forums, Gypsy Team.ru. Shout out to them. And you made a pretty good. There's a thread in Internet Poker where a bunch of people signed up. I think there's over 1,000 names on the list right now. And then you made a News Use Gossip post that sort of summarized exactly what's happening and what are we doing about it? What's the point of the strike, and why should anybody care? And I guess we can just start from the top. So what's the plan? What is happening? What is this player strike supposed to be?
Okay, so this is the summary of the strike. The strike is going to begin on December 1st at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Moscow time, since they're the ones who originated, which is a good time for them to do it, actually, because it coincides well for them when they start their day, for Americans at the end of the previous day, basically, or for Canadians and South Americans. And it's from December 1st to December 3rd. It's for 72 hours, not to play on Stars, and also to cash out. And this is an important thing: cash some money out. Pokerstars values the total amount of player balances. And if in a show of, this is a show of force. If we immediately, first of all, it's going to cause a bit of an administrative nightmare for them if all of a sudden a ton of people just cash out. Secondly, since this is, in essence, this is a show of force, it's not an overnight hit to their bottom line or something like that. We're not expecting to do that. It's basically an exercise, and it's a demonstration that we are capable of organizing and collaborating in some way that can affect their bottom line going forward. A lot of people have asked me on Twitter, why are you striking for 3 days? What is 3 days going to do? Well, first of all, we have to prove to ourselves that we can do this. Okay, it's kind of insane to just start off and be like, okay, we're all done. We're just boycotting Stars indefinitely. That's a huge sell to a lot of people. You can't, boycotting for 3 days is a huge sell to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we have to start small and basically make a demonstration that we are capable of doing something. We're capable of organizing in a meaningful way, and we're capable of organizing across the world with different poker communities. I mean, I've been talking with guys from like the Russian poker community who are involved in all this. I've talked to various Europeans. I haven't even gotten started talking to like Brazilians and Argentinians and Mexicans and all the Latin Americans. But there's just so many different corners of the poker world that have to collaborate on something like this. And we're going to do it, and it's going to be a good demonstration that we are capable of doing this. Remember, like, none of us want to do this. We all want to play on Stars. We want Stars to be a good home for us. We feel that we've been backed into a corner here, and this is our only option. So the idea that like we're going to do this and then it'll just end or something, that's not the case. Like, if the situation keeps getting worse, it's gonna get more. There's gonna be more steam behind the opposition to it.
Okay, so the plan is for that time period, the people who signed up on the list, and I'm sure other people, they're not going to play. Potentially going to do a cash out, and I guess at the end of so what happens at the end of those days? Is it sort of go back to status quo, back to normal sort of thing, or is this is the first step to potentially something greater in the future? Or what do you think the idea is from that point in time? Maybe Stars might come to. Do you think they're going to maybe, go back on anything from this happening, or?
Well, I think it's a first step, and it's sort of see how we did, see how they react, see if we can get any dialogue out of them. I mean, one of the things we really want, it's not just we want them to make the changes. We want to talk to them. Like, we want people from Stars to communicate with the players about proposed changes and ideas that they have. I mean, people need to remember, we're not like completely at opposite ends of this battle, Stars and us. The idea that like the players have one set of interests and Stars have their set of interests here, like, that's not really the case. We have a lot of aligned interests, okay? If poker collapses and online poker collapses, there's no more online poker, where it becomes a fraction of what it once was, that obviously hurts Stars just as much as it hurts us. So we do have a lot of aligned interests. So we want dialogue with Pokerstars. We don't want an adversarial relationship. We feel that they've put us in a situation where we don't have a choice, and they're making us adversaries, but we don't want that. Okay, so a good first step would be opening some sort of dialogue with people who have some sort of power or clout at Stars. And this is not unprecedented. They used to have player meetings all the time. I don't even know what happened to them. Did they cancel those? I mean, it used to be part of their strategy was to involve the poker community in changes that would affect them. And obviously there was huge disagreements all the time, but that's fine. It's about dialogue, it's about understanding the various issues, and about understanding, a meaningful way to move forward. So once that the strike is over, we can see where we can go from there. We can see how many people participated. We can look at numbers and see, you know, compare it to the week before or the week after, how Stars numbers were. And I think the real protests, if this goes through, the real like heavy hit on Stars is going to start on January 1st, because that's when, you know, when the changes take effect. I think it won't even be necessarily an organized protest. I think people are going to stop playing on Stars. I think the numbers are going to go way down because of these changes. And I think they're expecting them to go down. Obviously, they want less volume, clearly, since they're disincentivizing the high volume players. But I think it's going to have more far-reaching effects than they realize. And a lot of their revenue that comes from reg-on-reg battles that happen all the time across tons of stakes and tons of game forms are going to I'm not going to say they're going to disappear, because at least there'll still be 45% benefits for Supernova Elite in 2016 regardless. But certainly 2017, when there's no more Elite. I mean, I'm not a sit and go player, but a good example I know is like Six Max Hypers. They run all the time at like medium and high stakes with all regulars fighting for the lobby space, basically. You know, they're 6-handed games, right? And so 5 regulars will sit. So then the 6th regular who wants to play, he doesn't want to play with those 5 regs. He wants to play with a recreational player, right? But he can't now. So what does he do? He has to sit in as a 6th player to make a new lobby open up, and then he can get in. You know, that's and a lot of time people are willing to do that because they have really high rake back. So they'll lose a little bit or they'll win a little bit, and it'll be not that bad of an idea just to clear the lobby so that they get a chance to fight for space. Also, it's like it's basically like a war of attrition. You're basically trying to wear the other regs out so that they don't fight for the lobby. Okay, now that's just going to stop happening after a while. If they're not, you know, people are not going to be willing to do that. They're just going to have to sit and wait for the fish, because it's going to be too devastating of a proposition to play in an all reg game when they're not getting the benefits. And that's just one tiny example. I mean, there's tons of other examples of that happening in Zoom. That's going to happen in heads up signals. That's going to happen in Six Max Cash. It's going to happen. It's going to happen basically everywhere.
A comment on Twitch that I've heard this a lot, and I think it's been pretty much refuted by posts made on 2+2. It's a Flip says number of regs go down for a while. Fish don't give a shit. Regs go back. Now I think if you follow 2+2, since these changes have been announced, you'd see there have been a very large amount of recreational player posts made that they aren't very happy with these changes either. Like they enjoy the idea of having a dream of becoming, you know, a high stakes poker player, or making Supernova Elite, or, you know, becoming one of the best, or and really being able to sort of go from recreational or fun player status to actual professional poker player status. And a lot of those guys have posted in 2+2 in different places. So I think that argument right there, I mean, yeah, I'm sure some won't even be aware of it, but I think there are a surprisingly number of the recreational fun players who do really care about it too.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's the case. I think there's a number of recreational players who are very badly affected by these changes, and their bottom line is going to go down even more. Obviously, if they're losing, they're going to lose more. And I mean, look, it's really clear that that Stars makes it. They really want it to seem like they're making changes that'll shift the benefits from high volume pros and make it more a better playing experience for recreational players. Now that's a change that I would support. I would be fine with. If they wanted to tweak the VIP system in some way that altered sort of that basically, this is something people have been asking for years, actually, that they just ignore. Why don't you incentivize things like starting games? Okay, that's something that purely benefits everyone, basically. Lower the rake for the first couple players that are at a table. That incentivizes games to start. It incentivizes reg versus reg play. If you want to basically lower rake back in situations where there's a huge edge, if you can somehow tweak it in some way where that happens, that's totally fine. But this isn't what they're doing. They're just violently slashing benefits everywhere. And people don't understand. It's not like benefits. Like they're increasing rake, you know, it's not just like people seem to like forget that rake back is a reduction in rake. Okay. This is just an increase in rake. It's the same thing. And it's done in a very haphazard way, and it's not going to be effective. I don't think it's not going to do what they want it to do. I think that they probably have models that they think are going to predict what will happen. And I think a lot of what they're missing is they miss the message that's sent, and that affects how players perceive the game, perceive whether they can win at poker, perceive the ability to become a poker player. And I think that's going to affect a lot of new players. And because the way this is being felt, it's basically being felt like we don't want professionals on the site anymore.
Yeah, it sort of seems like from, I think Daniel Negreanu has been pretty, open on Twitter. He's had a lot of discussions with different poker players, different groups of poker players. And it seems like after our last discussion, he definitely took some things away from that. And he's sort of been going to, in this sort of back and forth with the powers that be who are at Pokerstars. But it seems like the powers that be at Pokerstars, as compared to before, they don't really know much about poker. They don't understand what it means to like be a poker pro or have a dream to be a poker pro. Like they don't really understand how this sort of thing works. So like they're just looking at these, these models and that's sort of what they're basing this off of. And so I don't know if they have much empathy for people like, I guess, things that you're saying or the high volume players. Like I just don't think they necessarily really understand much what you're saying, basically. I don't think they get it.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. And it's not even about empathy. It's just about like having some basic understanding of what poker is, what's happening. And like, they don't have, their finger to the pulse of what's going on in the poker community, of what poker players think. And I think it's like very obvious from the language of their press releases and from the tone of the company, how it's changed over the last few years, especially since Amaya purchased it and Isai left the company, that the company is no longer really run by poker players or people who understand poker. It's, it's turning into party poker. It's turning into like, they're treating it, they think that they're running like a lottery and they're not. And they have customers who are educated and aware of the climate that they're in, and they're going to react accordingly. And, players are going to start playing on other sites. And I mean, it's like, I just can't believe that they it's almost like they think that PR like doesn't matter, that it doesn't matter how people perceive the site. It does matter. Like it definitely will matter, public opinion about the site definitely matters.
You spoke about other sites. So Arturus Kirtovisky on Twitter says, what do you guys think about the idea to play on other sites on particular days? 888, iPoker, Winamax, or any other. So basically, what do you think about the idea during the strike for players? I've seen this posted on Twist too as well, for players to be playing on other sites. Maybe they stream their action on these other sites those days. What do you think about that idea? Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people have asked me that also on Twitter. I've given it some thought. I mean, I'm basically totally in favor of it. Since the point of the strike we've already established, it's basically a show of force. It's not necessarily like to have a specific impact on our life. We're basically showing that we're capable of moving our business elsewhere. And doing something like, their volume, the stars, having their volume go way down on a certain day, maybe that'll affect them a little bit, but how much more impact will it have if their volume goes down and then goes up on a rival site? I think that actually shows a lot more. And we're asking people to not play on a day that they might play. Maybe they didn't have a vacation plan for December 1st to 3rd. So yeah, I mean, go ahead, play on other sites. I'd be very happy to see traffic increase on other sites. And also I think maybe it'll light a fire under some of their asses, the other sites, to recognize that they have an opportunity to pull players away from stars right now. I don't know why they're not going after it really.
Yeah, I'm very confused by that also. I've been confused with this by a while. It just seems like a lot of the other sites are sort of stagnant in whatever their approach is to, like you never hear anything from these sites, like the Party Poker 888. I mean, you never hear anything from 888, like except the guys who are Twitter pros who tweet out 888 poker in the hashtag. That's like really the most I hear about 888. So I guess they've done a good job at making awareness for the brand with that strategy. But I'm really surprised that someone like that, especially now with these changes, and it seems like there will be a big market of new players to grab. I'm surprised something like that hasn't been done by these other sites yet that we found out about.
Yeah, it's a little bit perplexing, but I think one of the issues with these other sites, and one of the issues that we're afraid of Stars becoming, is that these other sites are big gambling companies. They have casinos, they have sports books, and poker is just not that important to them. So that's probably a big part of why. Pokerstars, well, it's in the name. It's Pokerstars.
Yeah.
And so poker has always been a priority for them, and they're obviously starting to shift away from that, and it's kind of scary. But that's a tangent. That's not really the point. They're free to open up a casino or do whatever. I don't, that's not why I'm going on strike.
Mark on YouTube says, "What's up, Mark Kennedy?" He says, "What do you say to the argument that Stars is actually happy to have this strike as it gives them a chance to see how a worst case scenario affects the room?"
No, I strongly disagree. I'm not sure what I mean by it gives them a chance to see, like we're giving them a free preview. I don't really buy that. What he's
saying is that this gives Stars an opportunity to see, okay, well, this many people stop playing on the site, this much traffic is still running, this many games are still going. Even if these players leave, we'll still have these amount of games or this amount of money to take in from that day or from that time period.
Okay, if that's the case, then we lost anyway. So we're not we're not losing anything by it, right? Like if that's the case, then the battle was lost before it even began. So we have nothing to lose on that front. But if we do make some kind of impact, then we only stand to gain from it. But in terms of I think I pretty thoroughly addressed this in one of my posts on 2+2. There's this bizarre idea that people have that pros provide no value to sites, and it's just total nonsense. It's just complete and total BS. Especially if you look at almost every game type at mid stakes or higher, it's just, and even low stakes, the games just don't run without pros. Obviously, they should market as much as they need to recreational players to get recreational players onto the site, and that'll bring pros onto the site, and that sort of churns the poker economy or whatever. Nobody's saying that they shouldn't market to recreational players, but it's like somebody on Twitter linked me this poker strategy article from a few years ago with somebody who's analyzing the trend that a lot of sites have where they're basically showing no interest to pros. They seem to think that they make this logical connection where they're like, okay, losing players are good for the site because they bring money. Therefore, winning players are bad, and that's not the correct connection. You still need the winning players. Okay, you need the winning players for liquidity so that games run. And when a weak player shows up, that's what makes when the pros play in a game with him, that's how they generate rake. That's where the rake comes from. It comes from game running. And especially Zoom is like the perfect example. Okay. Let's say you take a 5-10 Zoom PLO pool. Okay. It's empty. A very poor recreational player sits in. Now, all of a sudden 10 pros start playing, and they're playing tons of hands against just other pros. They're playing each other. And in the meantime, let's say they're all breaking even against each other. Obviously that's not what happens. There's some players who win and some players who are losing anyway, even with the recreational player. But let's just say, for sake of argument, they're all breaking even. So what's happening? Their account balances are slowly being drained by Pokerstars, and it's going into Pokerstars' bottom line, regardless of whether they're net withdrawers or depositors. It's just, I'll link the post where I pretty thoroughly debunk that ridiculous idea, but it's just nonsense. Obviously, there's a balance to be struck. I'm not denying that there's a balance to be struck. And if a site has very few recreational players and just an enormous amount of pros, the recreational players will have a very poor time, and then the pros will deplete them, and then there'll be no one left to play. And clearly that's not a good scenario either. But it's about a balance. It doesn't mean pros have no place.
An idea that I've been reading on some Skype groups, and my buddy Patrick Leonard, shout out to Patrick Leonard, he was just on the podcast, great episode, and he says on YouTube, round 2 of protest at EPT Prague question mark. Everyone wears T-shirts, badges about something about, it says in this specific example, they killed poker. We'll get a lot of exposure, and it's a Stars event too. I've read that idea on a couple different places. What do you think about that idea as sort of like a step 2 for a potential strike here? For like, I know might be EPT Prague might be coming up, or I guess PCA is coming up. So what do you think about something like that?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it. I'm totally in favor of it. And I think anyone who wants to step up and do something like that should do it. I'm not going to Prague. I can help whatever people want to do, as long as it's some sort of meaningful protest. I'm not really in favor of doing things that are disruptive. Like, I don't want like a sit out protest, for example. Because like I said, we don't want to be adversaries of Stars. We're not their enemy. We're trying to collaborate and open up a dialogue. Okay. We're not trying to break the rules and like riot, you know. This is civil disobedience. This is not, you know, we're not looting the stores. We're just protesting outside the store. If it's involving some sort of T-shirts, badges, maybe something like everybody stands up at a certain time and sits out of the live tournament, something like that, I'm totally in favor of. I think it's a good idea. I think distributing patches for everyone to wear that says something is fine. I think a lot of the stuff that's coming out of the Russian community some of it's good. Some of it, I don't mean this to be offensive at all. I'm just saying it as a matter of fact. I think sometimes they need to get better English speakers to translate some of the stuff, because sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand what they're saying. And so I think more American players need to be in communication with them to help the translation. Like something like they kill poker. I mean, I guess it's fine, but I don't know. It doesn't have the same ring to it. I don't know. Like, I think like for a slogan, "We were poker" is pretty good for criticizing Stars. You know, they love their "We are poker." I think "We were poker" is not bad. Yeah, and you know, anything of that nature, protests in Prague, I would be in full support of, and I don't think it would be that hard to do to get everyone to agree. Somebody just passes out patches or something. As long as they're not like completely over the top or something, I can't imagine Stars doing anything about it. What are they going to do? Ask half the tournament to leave?
Could be interesting. I know you've been sort of rallying the troops from some of the other high name or the big name pros to join the protest, or to be more vocal about how they feel about changes, or just be more vocal about things in general. So I mean, if for those people that are watching that are these high stakes guys, you know, what do you think that they should be doing in this situation? Do you think they should be? What do you think they should do? Okay,
just really quick before I answer that question, I just want to back up to the last question. One important thing that I forgot to mention, one of the reasons I like a protest in APT Prague with some sort of patch or T-shirt, even if you don't do anything with it, even if you just wear the shirt or just wear the patch, it'll spark conversation at the table. And there's a lot of recreational players who aren't in touch with the poker community, but if they see some sort of patch or a conversation gets started at the table, we're going to make them aware of these issues. Okay, and that's probably what Stars doesn't want. You know, when they've made these like rake change, like the rake change they made last year, or the VIP changes that they announced this year, they didn't send out an email. They made a post on 2+2. Why do you think that is? Because they don't want to tell the recreational players. Last year, when they increased the rate, they never sent out an email. So clearly, they don't want that communication. So we should initiate that communication. And I think doing it with starting out with like a T-shirt or a patch is a good idea. Now, to your other question, I think you asked what should high-profile, big-name pros be doing about this? Yeah, correct. Yeah. Well, for one, I think voicing very public support will have a big impact. I mean, I'm like I'm not like a huge name in poker. I'm a medium name or whatever, and I've been very vocal, and I feel like I've convinced a lot of people. And people have told me that I convinced them. Especially guys like Phil Galfon, Doug Polk. I mean, they joined the protest, and I think they're going to bring a lot of people with them. Like Doug, after I started tweeting about the strike, Doug tweeted at me like, "Sorry, bro, I can't do it. I'm going to Vancouver for 7 days to play online poker." Yeah, it's like, okay. And then he read the thread and he's like, "Oh shit! Look at all these like big names that are. There's a lot of names on this list that people I respect, my colleagues, whatever." And he said, "Okay, I'm in." He sees like 4 Haley on the list and Katya and I don't know, like all the other NL bosses. And so people see that he's in, and then they're going to be in. I mean, people trust a lot of the high stakes players, trust their judgment at least. So someone like Phil Galfond, who's like always been like, he's always been looked up to, not just for like being a good poker player, but as like being the guy with like the wisdom and like the smartest guy in poker, and always has like something meaningful to say about a subject. So somebody like him, and he signed up for the protest or for the strike, I think that'll have a lot of effect. So I want high profile big name players, not just to sign the list, but to sign the list and make it and get loud about it. Say, I signed onto the strike, and here's why. And here's why all of you should do it too. And I think that'll have I think it'll have a big effect. I think we're going to get to a pretty meaningful number of people who are signed up for the strike. I mean, I think it's like, the last I looked, it was like close to 1,000, like almost like a day ago, it was close to 1,000. Since then, it seems like a ton of people have signed up. So it must be like over 1,200 or something like that right now. I would not be surprised at all if we get over 2,000. And it's also like people, when there's less games running, like less people are going to play. It could have like a snowball effect. If somebody signs on, recreational player like logs on and wants to play a little 5-10 and just sees like empty streets, he might just log off. He might just not play, and that's a really good effect for us. And it's really bad for stars, and it's something that they certainly want to avoid. So I would really like to see. I'd really like to see big names promoting it and joining in. And the fact is, we have nothing to lose. Let's say we protest, we do this strike and it achieves nothing. Well, then we were screwed anyway. But at least with this, we're giving ourselves a chance, And I honestly think it has a good chance to have a meaningful impact, in at least in some of the ways I've outlined what I would describe as meaningful, what we're interested in.
Yeah, if anybody is interested in signing up for that, I have a link in the YouTube description to Ansky's thread in News Use Gossip, and also to the link in Internet Poker. You can check those threads out as well. And I think that's what I've been reading most from the comments during the podcast right now, is that people are saying, what's the point of this? And we addressed this at the beginning of the cast too. Even on 2+2, a lot of people are saying, this is dumb. This, what the fuck? Like, what are you guys doing? What are you thinking? But as you said, they're like, what's the worst that comes from it? There's really, it's sort of like it will get much worse than what it is now. I don't think so. So you might as well try to do something and try to work towards something and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the way it's headed right now. If there's no protest and we don't get anything back, and these changes go through, I honestly think it's going to be horrible. Like, I think they're going to be terrible changes. I think games are going to stop running that used to run all the time. And I think it's just going to be a worse experience for everyone. I think the overall volume is going to go way down. I think like 5-10 is just like not even going to exist anymore.
5-10 PLO.
5-10 no limit and PLO, which just won't exist anymore, because it's the lowest stakes that still doesn't get, that won't get any rate back whatsoever. So like, you're so incentivized to play 2-5 or 10-20 if you want to play 5-10. I think, I think this is going to have, like, I think the people who are going to experience the most bad news from this are going to be mid-stakes players, probably, because you're going to see a lot of high-stakes players moving down. You're going to see a decrease in rate back. And then I think that'll have like a snowball effect, and I think it'll affect the low stakes players too quite a bit. I really think it's going to affect everyone horribly. I really don't want to see these changes happen. And if they're hell bent on removing Supernova Elite, which I don't think is the most unreasonable change, I feel like there has to be a give and take, and there has to be a give somewhere, and there's no give anywhere. Not for any, like the idea that we're going to reduce VIP, we're going to reduce the rake back for high volume players and redistribute and push the economy in another direction is fine, but that's just not what's happening. That's not what they're doing.
2 comments here. I gets on Twitch says, what if people go sit at the micro stakes tables and enlighten the players there? And John Lundy says, interested to see how this works. So I think you actually asked me for something related to this, maybe. He says, have you figured out how much rake/traffic is lost from this sit out, and what percentage of the overall Stars player pool /rake this accounts for?
Well, no, it hasn't happened yet. So how would I know how much it's gonna? I mean, I'm very interested to see after how much of an effect we had, because this isn't gonna be the last protest, and it's obviously going to be very important for us to keep track of what's effective and what's not. And if we learn about where this is effective, we can, keep pushing forward with it and do more in the future. Look, I mean, I would love to have all the answers. I don't, but we have to give it a try.
I mean, it's going to be really interesting because I'm sure a lot of people signed up for this protest, and obviously it is December 1st. There's Supernova Elite time for a lot of people that are trying to, go for that mad scramble here in the last month. And I'm sure some people will sign up. They'll be playing. Some people will call them out. Like, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens for sure. And I think the EPT idea is a pretty good idea. I imagine that we would see something like that organized for EPT Prague, and we'll kind of go from there. What do you think best case scenario from all this is?
Best case scenario from the protests?
From this first initial strike here.
Best case scenario is Pokerstars fires all their executives, gives everyone Supernova Elite for free, lowers the rake at micro stakes, and no, I'm just kidding. What is the best case realistic scenario? I think holding off on removing Supernova Elite until 2000, or the reduction of Supernova Elite until 2017 is fair and just, and what they did is completely out of line, and it's an unreasonable reduction of rewards after deceiving their players. I mean, for all you want to say about what Stars has a right to do or right not to do, it's basically their decision. That's all fine, but the cutting of this Supernova Elite rewards is by far the most inexcusable of all this, because it's an outright deception, and they basically were lying to their players for 10 months of the year until basically, or I guess almost 11 months, because it would have been middle of November when they announced the changes. And that is extremely unethical and a horrible change. So getting that pushed back to 2017, I think would be I hate using the word win, because it's no, it's not a win. It's just a return to the status quo, which was fair. It's I used this analogy before. It's if somebody steals your wallet, you don't ask for half of it back and then pat yourself on the back for getting it. You just want it all back, and you wanted that to never have happened. It's exhausting to have to do this. So that would be, some sort of win. Getting VPPs back for high stakes, I think, is attainable. I think it's very reasonable for them to put that back, and that would be a very big win. Again, not my favorite word, but it would be a big win to get high stakes VPPs back. I think it's just it's completely unreasonable to just remove VPPs from high stakes. It's such a radical and dramatic shift. It's so insane, and it's so aggressive, and it's going to have horrible effects, in my opinion, for the idea of giving players something to aspire to, new players. I mean, it just goes so in contrast with the all their new marketing and how they're marketing on Twitch and showing, you know, what is capable of happening in poker. You can play high stakes and you can win at it, and you know, like you can look like you're I mean, to have like, you know, Negreanu used to was streaming playing 400, 800. And obviously they think like, oh, well, if you're playing 400, 800, you don't care about rake. That's just not true. Players play in really thin games all the time. And 400, 800 is extreme. I mean, we're talking about 510. Like, of course, people care about rake back at 510, and they do care about it at 2550 too.
I think one comment I read right now, which I've thought about a lot more, is Steve O'Dwyer on YouTube says, don't forget devaluation of FPPs. That's just outright theft from dormant accounts. I've been thinking about this a lot. It doesn't make sense that the players themselves have to convert their FPPs to the Stars coins. Why wouldn't they just automatically, for those who don't know, the FPP conversion rate right now is going to decrease when it turns to Stars coins. So if you don't convert your FPPs by December or January 1st, you then lose that value that you would have had if you would have done. I don't understand why they just don't convert that automatically for players. Yeah, why would they make? It doesn't make much sense. I don't know. Why wouldn't you just do it automatically? I don't know. I haven't understood that yet.
Because it depends. Partially, it's because your FPP value. It depends on what status you are. So for years they've made it so that if you're Supernova, you get a certain value on your FPPs. If you're Supernova, or if you're Platinum Star, you get lower value. If you're Chrome, etc. So that depends. So basically, it actually depends on what your status is when they get converted to Stars Coin, how badly you're getting screwed, or if it has, or if it can benefit you in some way. Honestly, the explanation of the Stars Coin thing, I know I think they think that it's a simplification, but it's very convoluted and it's very hard to understand what the hell they're talking about with any of it. And I'm just really it's just so shocking, like how bad their PR is. It's unbelievable how bad their press releases are and their language that they use. They are like, they think they're talking to children or something. It's unbelievable how insulting and how they just assume we have like no intelligence level, and they just write a bunch of like convoluted nonsense and expect us to just like, like just take it. It's just ridiculous. And the FPP thing, it's just like, it's very confusing and hard to figure out exactly how much this will, how much they will recover from their FPP debt, basically, because I don't know how many Silver Stars and Chrome Stars there are with various balances, and I don't know how many Supernovas are going to forget to do it, and it's all very weird. So I've actually kind of just like stopped talking about the FPP thing, because it's a little bit more, it's just like a weird thing to try to quantify. But yeah, I mean, definitely if you're Supernova, for sure, you need to cash in your FPPs before the end of the year.
I guess the thing that I've been reading the most here in the chat so far, and even in other places, is, you know, Dani Negreanu's name being mentioned pretty often. Why is Dani Negreanu? Why is he publicly on board with the changes? Why, when the changes were made, did he say these were great changes? You know, why hasn't he said anything else since these initial changes came out? He said he's going to say something, and it does seem like, you know, he's such a huge voice for poker, for Pokerstars, and it seems like a lot of people really just hear what he says, and they don't actually, you know, they're really not reading 2 + 2. They're not like seeing things like this. Like, there's so many people out there that just see what Dani Negreanu's opinion is, and his opinion's been, well, these are good changes. So, you know, I just hope we hear some more from him in the near future about things, because I think a lot of people just go with his word, and I don't think he's necessarily directly affected by these changes in any sort of way, so he doesn't really feel a need to maybe, you know, maybe he is fighting behind the scenes. So, you know, I'm not sure what's happening, but it seems like a lot of people just take his word and sort of go from there.
It's very hard to say what's going on with Negreanu. I mean, I've been in communication with him, and I've been texting him, trying to get some information. I don't doubt that he's doing something, and he like, thing is, like, you know, he can talk to David Basoff. I can't. So like, so there's no sense in alienating Negreanu. We have to keep him sort of part of the fight, and that he's not, you know, I don't want to turn the fight against him. But I do want him to understand what's going on. And look, for all of who he is in the poker world and his power and everybody's love for him, the fact is he's not like on the ground in online poker. He's not like in the trenches with the, what's going on. He's very far away from online poker. And so he mostly gets information that they tell him, that Pokerstars tells him. And then he'll get information that I tell him or other online players that he's in communication with. And he has to basically parse through all of that. And of course, the difference is Pokerstars is paying him, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever, however many $1 million a year. I have no idea, and we're not paying him. So he starts out on their side, and we have to pull him with information if we can. But the thing is, like, I'm not gonna pass judgment until anything happens. Like, nothing's happened yet with him, and he's made some pretty big ultimatums and promises that we'll see what happens with them. Yeah, I mean, time will tell. I'm getting impatient too, as is everyone else. But what can we do?
Yeah, I'm staying still optimistic about Daniel's involvement here, but I mean, he just had the Kid Poker documentary come out last night, premiere in Toronto. Obviously, that's going to be coming out. That's directly with Pokerstars. So, he's got like, yeah. It's just I don't think he's gonna, go away from being that face of Pokerstars anytime soon. So, it should be interesting to see what happens. And I guess the last thing to talk about is with Pokerstars coming out here in New Jersey. I'm not sure when the timetable of that launches. I think it's early 2016. Do you think any of these things at all will affect that at all? Or do you think people are just going to Pokerstars? I mean, the options in something like New Jersey, I'm pretty sure Pokerstars is going to be the best, no matter from what they have right now. So, I mean, I don't necessarily think American players are going to boycott Pokerstars if it comes back to the States.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, in the degree to which Pokerstars New Jersey will be connected to Pokerstars World or whatever you want to call it, I'm really not sure. And I don't know what we can expect out of a new Pokerstars brand that's opening up in New Jersey. So, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, we don't want to hate Pokerstars. We don't want to be their enemy. We want Pokerstars to be good. We want them to be our favorite site because they were always our favorite site. It was everybody's favorite site for the longest time. So, it's not even about resisting them everywhere, like resisting them in New Jersey, resisting them in .fr, and like we just want the changes to be better for us. It's not just like us versus them. It's us pleading with them to be reasonable.
You guys have any questions? There's a lot of good comments coming in. I've tried to reading some of them during the chat, but obviously I can't get to them all, or I can't ask all the questions. But if you guys have some questions right now, go ahead and ask them on Twitch or YouTube, and I'll take one or two, and then we're gonna wrap it up here in a little bit. What's your planner coming up over these next couple of days? You're gonna be trying to rally the troops even more behind the scenes, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep posting on Twitter and trying to convince people to do it. And I part of the battle has also been arguing with people who seem to think that I'm wrong, and I'm trying to prove them. I'm trying to argue my case. It's not, it's not just about getting signatures. It's about convincing people and convincing other poker players and eventually convincing stars why they're wrong. I mean, the stakes are very high here, and I really think people need to understand that. We're talking about like the fate of online poker, or of being a poker pro and the experience of playing online poker at Stars. And I really have no idea what online poker will look like in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. But I mean, I think for anyone involved in online poker, this is like a really important fight, and it's really important for all of us. So I'm just going to keep saying that and keep trying to convince people of that. And just remind people to not play on Stars December 1st to December 3rd, and to cash the money out, and to stay in the loop with what's happening. Really focus or follow along on 2+2 and all all the threads and on Twitter. And I think there's like another movement for doing something on January 1st, starting on Tiltbook. Is that right? Tiltbook.
Yep.
And just following along with all those things. And I mean, I want people to talk about it. Like, I know poker communities, it's like high school. There's like tons of cliques, and everybody has like different groups of friends. Like, talk amongst your groups of friends about it. Bring this up. Like, this is a big issue for you if you're an online poker player. If you're a poker player, it's a big issue. And it's also like, I keep saying this. This is not just about the changes. These changes are what really brought this out of me and out of a lot of other people who are trying to lead the protest. This is also like a shift in the kind of company that Pokerstars is. It started I guess it started when the Scheinbergs left. They did things like last year, like increasing the rake without telling people. I mean, they told us on 2+2, big deal. They basically did that so that they would avoid the shitstorm of people finding out on their own. But they didn't send out an email. They slipped in a conversion fee for converting money that they never used to have, and they didn't tell anyone. In fact, it just happened. It was like some random employees who put it in, because I know that because a lot of people, when they emailed Stars about it, they're like, "Why are you charging me 2.5% on a conversion? You guys have never done that before." The response from support would be, "No, we don't do that. We don't charge for conversions," because they thought they didn't, because they didn't used to, and it just was randomly inserted in. And so I think. And then that combined with the just total lack of communication with players that there used to be. I mean, there used to be so much communication with players. It was a much better experience being a Pokerstars customer. They've just radically changed all of that, and it's kind of scary. And that's why I want people to really like take notice. If you don't want Pokerstars to become, like iPoker or something like that, or one of these sites that
or On Game,
which is Amaya's creation from the beginning,
which is owned by. That's not just that. I mean, for no one that's never played on Game, you have to understand On Game went. I mean, it went from being like a site you could play on to one of the worst sites in existence in terms of everything that could go into making a good site. And so, and Amaya owns On Game, so it's just. Not much. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. Let me see one more question here. Rem says, "What times do we cash out? How much?"
However much you're comfortable with. I mean, a bigger number is better, but I'm not telling everyone how to manage their finances. I think cashing out a meaningful amount is a good idea, and you do it on December 1st or November 30th is fine, I guess. But just try to do it like late November 30th or early December 1st. I think that'll have the most meaning, and it'll make it most clear that it's part of this protest and that it's not just a random cash out. That would, and everyone should try to remember to do the cash out. I think that'll really catch their attention.
All right, guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate Dani for coming back on to talk more about the strike. I will, as it takes place, I'll be posting about it on Twitter. I'm sure Dani will be posting about it on Twitter. Any good, relevant posts that come out from 2+2, I'll try to sort of put together in one place for everyone to see who's trying to stay up to date on the information that goes on in the future. And we'll do something after the strike. We'll talk about, maybe what's happened from now until the strike happens. And, I guess we'll see what happens. I'm going to have next podcast, I'm going to have Jason Moe on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and I'm sure he'll have some very interesting things to say about all this. And I think that's the next podcast I'm having. Besides that, I have nothing else 100% scheduled right now. That's about it. Dani, people want to reach you on Twitter. If they want to engage with you in conversation, you're at The Real Ansky. And you've been pretty good about, replying to people that make comments to you on Twitter, whether it's, on your side or against your side. You've been really, really good about, getting back to people. People can post on 2+2 in the different threads. and you've been really good about responding to certain people that might be asking you questions. And yeah, we'll see what happens. And if anyone else, has anything else they want to know about anything, hit us up, let us know. So that's it. You got anything else you want to add?
I really want people to just do it. I want to just shake everyone and be like, do this. You really should do it. You really give it a try. This is something that I don't think most people think we're capable of. I know this was supposed to be the conclusion, but I'm going to go on a little bit more of a rant. Listen, on December 1st to December 3rd, the games are going to be softer. Nobody is denying that. Everybody knows that obviously all these good pros are protesting. They're going to be softer. I want people to be able to resist that urge, okay? If you agree with me that what Pokerstars is doing is going to be immensely harmful to the online poker pro and to the online poker player in general, this is higher stakes than whatever games you're going to play for those 3 days. And this is more important, okay? And I think for once as poker players, the idea that we can get together and do this in a collaborated way, I really think it's possible. I think the amount of people that have already signed up, that have already stated, I'm going to pass up these better games, I think it's really tremendous. And I do think that we can make a difference with Stars, and I do think they will listen. And it's like I said, there's many forms of what kind of victory we can achieve from this. And, I think Stars used to listen to players, and we want them to listen to the players again. And that's a big part of this, okay? I know they probably think that there's a lot of noise out there and people just saying nonsense, but there are also a lot of really good ideas that players have that want to engage with Stars in some sort of dialogue. And I think this is a good first step in getting that going. So I want everyone to protest from December 1st, or sit out from December 1st to, not sit out, but strike from December 1st to December 3rd. And cash out some money, any amount.
All right, guys, we'll leave it at that. You can stay updated for the changes. Look out for future videos and read the forums. That's all I got, man. Dani, I appreciate you coming. Someone called you Dani the other day on a podcast. They're like, oh, Dani. I was like, no, his name's Dani. I got to let you know that. So I've been correcting people on your name pronunciation. I've been fighting the fight for you on the front. And congratulations with the marriage once again. And good luck getting back here in the PLO rink before the end of the year and see how the changes go. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
See you guys later.